Welcome back to the Peace Build. My name is Nicholson, and this is a channel where I like to speak about growing your character, your emotional intelligence, your ability to pay attention to things that are larger than your ego, so we can navigate smoothly through this game of life. And as you can see here today, I'm on a different part of the map of this incredible video game. And there's many different things around me than there were on the last two episodes. There's a whole different set of relationships here. And relationships ultimately are the bridge of life. The first episode, I talked about meditation, which is how you come into balance with the existence, not just your psychology, but your life. Because the universe is coming to balance anyway. So meditation is how to get there consciously. Otherwise, you'll be dragged there. The second episode was about how wise consumption can lead to clarity. And this is how you attain a meditative state in the world. So even if your eyes are not closed, you're walking around, you're interacting, engaging with the different forms of life, you can still be in a meditative state if you consume wisely. If you consume things that are from the earth, that again assist you with that balance. And if you've mastered those two things, you can reach a state of establishment within yourself, and then you can jump into having wise relationships, which is the point of today's video. If you haven't watched the first two, I suggest going back, looking at them, because they all build upon each other at the Peace Build. So, fundamentally, the first part I want to articulate here is that the greatest illusion is separation. And if you do an experiment with your hand, hold it out like this, you close your eyes, take a deep breath, and pay attention to the borders of your hand. Try to distinguish what is my hand and what is everything else. And you'll see the more you pay attention to it, the more you try to concentrate on developing a boundary, the more you'll be able to see that it doesn't exist. Even as we look out here with these two eyes, the mind might say, this is my hand and this is everything else. But when we close our eyes and we go beyond the illusion of form, we can see that there's no difference between my hand and everything else, because everything is one energy. And this is the foundational insight to have when you're engaging with relationships. Because if you are perceiving things as separate from yourself, you're not going to be able to be in the flow of what's going on. You're going to think that there is no connection between me and the river, between me and the rocks, between you and this YouTube video. But the fact is, the only way we're able to interact with all these things is because they're all happening at the same time and they come from the same source. Therefore, they're all connected. And this, for me, is the heart of what it means to be a human being. not necessarily a human thinking or a human doing or a human having, but a human being, which for me is allowing the life around you to transact with you. Meaning, I can use my voice to speak out into the earth, but then the earth can also speak out to me. As I'm sitting here, I'm not only paying attention to what I'm saying to you, I'm paying attention to what I'm receiving from the environment. And this is why I travel to this obscure location, so I can receive the ambience of what's going on. And as a result, this gives me the qualities of what's around me and allows me to speak in such a way that reflects this environment. But if you don't allow the life around you to transact with you, if you don't speak into the environment, if you don't listen for what the environment is saying, you're going to be completely lost. And this is a fundamental law of navigation, which is a whole other video I'm going to make in the future, because for me, that is the highest skill a human being could have, is navigation. And if you aren't attuned to the signs of what's happening around you and within you, you're going to have no sense of orientation. Your reference point of where you are, where you want to go, how are you going to get there, how long is it going to take, how fast do I need to move to get there on time. All of that is going to be out of your awareness, and you're going to feel like an alien. For a long time, I myself, I felt like I didn't belong here. I thought I was so different, and I couldn't fit in anywhere. And I realized that the more I pushed myself away from people and institutions because I thought I wasn't supposed to be here, the more I actually came to a universal truth that all is one. And this is how life is set up, that even if you believe in all your heart and your mind that you're not connected, it's going to give you situations that will lead you back to the fact that you are indeed connected to everything. And if you abide in this space, this sacred space of interconnectedness, you'll be able to come back to the tribe that you separated yourself from, tried to separate yourself from, with knowledge of your own book. There are many different voices we can listen to in the world, but you yourself have your own book. People throughout time have talked about this thing called the Akashic Records, a database of information that contains all of human history, all of our memories, everything that's relevant of this existence. And it's my perspective that we all have a piece of this library within us. In fact, I'm using the pieces of that library that I have captured through expanding my consciousness to convey this message to you right now. There's not a lot of thoughts in my head, what I'm thinking. There's just a lot of attention. And when I orient myself with that attention to receive the relationship of what's around me, there is something else beyond this that allows me to relate. And this is the joy of being a human being. That not only your emotions and your energy and your attention, but also your psychological structure has the ability to be in sync with this as we're sitting here. And even if you notice the frame, how this is set up, is different from the last one. And they're all going to be different because the terrain will be different. And if I wasn't allowing myself to transact with this world, I would say to myself, with my thoughts, that the frame needs to be the same each and every time, like I see a lot of other people doing. But this just isn't the case. Sometimes the reference point will be further away, Sometimes the reference point will be closer. Sometimes it'll be a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. There is no correct answer when it comes to relationships, but there is a complete one. And this is the point of this channel, is to deliver a complete message. One way to see this life is it's like a dream. And in your own experience, when you dream, when you go to sleep at night, you close your eyes in your bed, and you have visions of another world. There might be other people in there. And when you're in that dream, it seems like those are other people who have different lives and different motivations. But when you wake up, you realize that was a dream, and all those other separate people, even the environment, even the mystical creatures that you might have seen in your dream, they were all you. They were all a figment of your own mind. So just like this, when you're in this world right now, and you're at a certain level of wakefulness, even if your eyes are awake, if your consciousness hasn't expanded enough because you haven't embraced what's around you, you will not understand that the person you're talking to is actually another version of you. They might have different names. My name is Nicholson. Your name might be Jerry. But when we look beyond that, when we go past the identity, like I talked about on the first episode, we can remove the masks and have a legitimate relationship with another human being. Persona means mask, the personality. And this is something that we can wear unconsciously that's so tight to the point that we believe that's what we are. And when you believe that you're this mask that you've unconsciously put stuck on your face, you're only going to be able to relate to specific things that that identity feels like it belongs to. But if you take the mask off, if you learn how to meditate, and you develop a system of sobriety, and you open your heart up, your mind, your thoughts, you'll be able to connect with everything and everyone, because the boundaries that seem to separate me and you, they're nothing, as I said. There's no separation between this hand and everything else. And then this life will become like a dream. You will start to have thoughts that relate to the flow of life and not just the little ego you're trying to protect in that moment. You will be able to see beyond the cycles that bind you to move into a larger sphere of existence. There won't be any sense of conflict, because conflict always requires two. For there to be conflict, there has to be one situation and two people looking at it, and both of those two people say, there's something wrong here with how you're seeing it, and there's something wrong here with how I'm seeing it. And not only does this manifest on the outside, but this will manifest within your consciousness. There will be two different forces that will be at play within you. There will be the force that believes I'm right, which means my ego is correct. And then there will also be the other force of what you believe is the other person. And they will say, no, I'm right. So these two forces are swirling within you, and there is a sense of clinging to the whole story about it. But if you step back and realize that I'm not actually any of these forces, I'm actually the one consciousness that contains these forces, that allows these forces to exist. And then you can evolve into being in a state of confusion without clinging. And the beautiful nature of consciousness is that whatever it allows into its experience, whatever form it brings in, it will organize it already because it's an existential tool. The way I see it, the existence is already perfect, and all of us are just trying to figure out how does this work so we can move along with this stream that's been working for billions of years. There was a beautiful quote by Jordan Peterson. He said something like, "What's older, aggression or you?" And that's just one aspect of a human being is aggression. But also, we could say, what's older, the nature of peace or you? The nature of creation or you, your ego, your limited experience from this lifetime. Now, when you understand clearly that my knowledge is this much, and then the infrastructure of creation is this much, eventually, if you're smart enough, you would want to stop your silly thinking and just look and learn how to build a relationship with life. But if you have such a distinct identity, it's going to be hard to submit, to see what is there, so you can really be in communion. I learned this, that with computer systems, there cannot be two operating systems at the same time. So if there's iOS 11, there can't be both that one and then iOS 12. So what happens is, when the update comes, you have to restart the phone. And when you restart the phone, when you restart the computer, the operating system altogether will temporarily black out. It'll disappear. And then what holds it is actually the environment that allows the operating system to exist. So there's a period of time where the environment will take over. And then it will have a very simple system that allows the complexities of the operating system to be reborn into its new version. But it can't happen at once. So one has to die for the other one to come in. So this operating system is like an identity. And this environment is what allows these updates and these identities to even happen in the first place. So if you truly want to evolve, if you truly want to learn how to relate better to the people, places, and things around you, there has to be a certain period of time where you step away from what's familiar and you step into the unknown. And you recognize that this is just unknown to my intellect, but it's not unknown to my being. Because everything is connected, as I said. And there's no way that this creation would put this being in a harmful situation, because the point of all of this is to live. Is to be sustained. It's difficult to find your place in the world, because even if we are this being, at the end of the day, we still need to step into the light and interact with our fellow people. But if you go into it recognizing that it's an illusion, it can become a game. And one of the frameworks that I have discovered, not me discovered, but I studied it, lots of other people have studied this as well, is archetypes. An archetype is essentially a pattern of behavior that exists throughout time. So, for example, in the male psychology, there is a king archetype. In the woman's psychology, there is a queen archetype. And the king does certain things, he looks a certain way, he speaks a certain way, he holds himself to a certain standard. The queen does the same thing. And if you follow these patterns of behavior, you will become like a king in a way. You will become like a queen in a way in your context. You don't have to have jewels and go on military campaigns and things like that, but you can rule your own life, just as one example, if you follow this archetype. So if you study these archetypes, there's so many throughout the world, throughout history. If you study these things and then you relate them back to what are my natural interests of life, you will start to understand that, okay, I think I'm leaning towards this archetype, or I think I'm leaning towards this archetype. And the more you experiment with that, you go into it and you see how it plays out on the world stage. Shakespeare said something like, this world is a stage and we are all actors. So these actors are just the archetypes. And if you hone in on one archetype, if you focus your energy into a coherent pattern, you will develop a position for yourself in this world. And when you develop a position for yourself, people will start to perceive you in a certain way. You will start to receive certain rewards. And you will overall feel settled in this society. You won't feel like an alien. People who feel like aliens, as I said, believe they're too different. No one is too different. If we look out into the world here today, this environment, there are so many odd looking forms. According to how I see things, there's moss that's growing on rocks. How that happens, I have no idea, because there's no soil on the rocks. But yet it's here. There are trees growing from the side of a river. There's water here. We don't even really know what water is. There's just, even my hair, I've never seen anything like it. Even this channel, never seen anything like it. But because it all comes into existence, it means it's been delivered to the right point. There's nothing here that doesn't have the power to be involved with life, because everything is life, everything is connected. So for me, I've discovered I have similarities to this king archetype, to the messenger archetype, to the magician, a few other ones, but those are the main ones. And once I discovered and realized that I can actually train myself to think like a king, to think like a magician, to think like a messenger, and I sit with myself and I say, what would a king do? What would a messenger do? What would these people do? And then you do it, and then you see that it works because it's a natural pattern. Patterns are ultimately what creates the world around us today. So when we engage with other human beings that have a system of energy that flows within them, we can see that it is like an alchemic process. And what I mean by that is alchemy comes from the word chemistry. Chemistry comes from the word chem. Chem is an ancient Egyptian word that means soil. They had black, fertile soil that grew all kinds of wonderful things. So when you engage with someone, it's not just at the surface. You are influencing their soil at the base level. So you have to be very conscious of who you are, what it is you want, how you want to create it, how do you want to think, how do you want to feel. You have to be very conscious of all those things before you jump into a relationship, because they have the power to build and destroy, especially for people who don't practice meditation, who don't have a sense of distance between what is them and what is the world. Most people are very plugged into the world, this matrix, and they believe that it's them. So therefore, everything that happens in the dream is all that happens, all that's relevant. So we need to be very careful with the process, especially in romance. And we can see this in the moment. It happens very quickly. When you see someone you're interested in, there is a sense of vibrance that appears within you. It's not something that you created. It's a natural phenomenon, and that's the beauty of it. So this state of arousal can be used for all kinds of things. We can use it to uplift the entire system into a meditative experience, to take the energy from the base level all the way up to the crown. But because this process is interdependent, meaning both you and the other person are using this ship, this relationship, to ride through the energy, to ride through this alchemic process, it has to be very stable. Both people have to be very stable. Because if you get to the top of a emotional event because of something the other person did, and this person decides to flip the script and they become someone else, it can break you. It is so important to understand that relationships are a service between person to person. It's a service, it's a sacred service. So again, if you establish yourself through meditation, eating clean, thinking clean, having clean motivations, then you will be an offering to the other person instead of an extraction. The greatest thing that we have is not the houses, it's not the cameras, it's not the clothes, it's not any possessions that we have. It is our character. If we can sharpen our character into someone who is intelligent, someone who is joyful, someone who's helpful, someone who can speak well, someone who can contribute something of value to society and the people around them, then that's the greatest thing you could give someone. That's the greatest offering you could give. And I see lots of people entering into relationships. I did this myself for a long time, unconsciously. We enter into relationships for the purpose of building our character, instead of going into it and saying, how can I use my character to uplift this person already? And if you go into it asking the question, how do I go into this to build my own character? You will turn yourself into a being of extraction, which means you will go into their chemistry, their soil, and you will try to take out the fruit that they're growing. And eventually you will feel great for a while, but they will feel drained. An extreme example of this is when Britain went into India and essentially extracted their raw materials to ship them back to England so they could produce finished goods to uplift their economy, while the Indian economy was flat broke. And there was a huge famine that killed millions of people. And this is because the British didn't come to them and say, how can we use our ingenuity to uplift the people of India? They said, how do we go into India and extract what they have, because we don't have it, so we can bring it back to our home and uplift our own economy, our own people. This is obviously not the way to do it. So if you find yourself in relationships and they aren't going well, you need to be very honest with yourself and ask, am I a gift or am I missing something? Because if you don't understand that, then you and the other person will break apart at some point. It's going to happen because it's not balanced. And anything in life that is sustained is balanced, because life is always coming back to equilibrium. There are so many primal motivations that we channel when we want to engage in a relationship. The main one is reproduction. So lots of men and women are controlled by this desire to reproduce instead of their desire to give. Because if you don't have a sense of distance between what is me and what is my body, all of the drives that come to the body, you will be taken away by them. And the body only wants to survive. And the way it survives is it reproduces. So many things in our culture, with how people dress, with how marketing is set up, with the economy of the world, is centered around reproduction. I won't talk about this today because I'm running out of time. Another episode, I'll talk about evolutionary psychology. If you don't understand that, you are being taken on a ride by nature. And if you want to wake up and live this life with a sense of navigation instead of a sense of compulsion, you really do want to study evolutionary psychology. So this channel literally is about channeling the energy up so we can see life from a perch and not from the bottom. We want to have a bird's eye view, which is what will allow you to see the signs of what's happening in your environment and your relationships. And last but not least, if you learn how to transact with silence, you will learn how to be here and be a bridge from that silence where everything comes into this world. There's a archetype that's called a medium. And these are people who, they don't read books. They don't listen to what other people have to say. They only transact with the silence, the source of creation. And that's what allows them to see things and speak about things that no one has seen, because most people are looking at the forms of the world while they're looking at the formless. If you learn to be in charge of yourself, that means to be responsible for the charge of your life, the electricity, the emotions, the thoughts, everything of your life, you will be able to have a relationship, a direct relationship with this source of creation. And then you too will have wisdom that you will be able to share with other people across the world and across relationships. And the more wise you become and the more you share that wisdom with the people around you, not only yourself, but your entire community will rise in its own alchemy, in its own soil, its own energy, to have an elevated sense of community. And there's really nothing better than that. This is why I run this channel, why I'm in charge of this channel. Because I want to live an expanded life. I want to travel around the world and help people solve their problems and solve my own at the same time. And I want to be able to share the value of creation, of nature, through this platform. So for the people who have watched me so far, I've only been on here for a week. It means a lot. I was not expecting to receive the level of engagement that I have received this far, but thank you for being here. As I said, this is a whole book of information that will come out very gradually, slowly, as I find the time and the terrain to do it. If you need specific help with anything regarding your health, your relationships, understanding the economy, which is what I will talk about next, then you can reach out through the link in my bio. It's a consultation, it's my business, and I'm very proud to do it. This is all I have for today. If you found value in this, hit the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment. It really helps with the growth of this channel, to build the relationship of this channel between me, the earth, the camera, and everyone who's watching. This is the Peace Build. Once again, my name is Nicholson, your host, and I will see you on the next one.